Alright, first off, I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Seeds of Music, the web's #1 resource for independent artists. I'm your host, Kyle Williams, and this is our weekly web show where I bring on music industry professionals and successful independent artists to talk about the ways to build a bigger, stronger fan base and earn more income from music. Now, just a quick announcement here, there is an audio-only version of this show. Okay, because I do video on Skype and post that to YouTube and then put that on the Seeds of Music website. But we have an audio-only version that's on iTunes. Just head over there and punch in the search box, Seeds of Music, Rise Above the Noise. Click subscribe and get all the episodes downloaded straight to your mobile device. And if you want to help the show out, there's a really easy way to do that. Just leave a rating and a review within iTunes. This will help improve our ranking within the iTunes interface, to help it search better, give the show more exposure, help more artists, and I'll be able to get bigger and better interviews. I'll also give you a shout out in the next episode if you leave that review, just to say thank you for doing that. So on to this week's episode, we have as our guest Mike Vile. He is a 100% musical income independent artist. He doesn't have a label, and all he does when he wakes up is music. And his story is interesting because he actually was a high school English teacher for quite some time before he made the decision to plunge into music, and now that's all he does. And the coolest thing is, at the time of shooting this interview, he was in the process of closing down on a house with his wife, and so he was kind of he had to stay in a hotel, so he was doing the chat from an iPhone in his hotel. So that was pretty cool. So it just kind of flies in the face of this. A lot of people who say that there isn't a musician middle class. Well, here's an example of someone who has done this, and within the past couple of years, when things are supposed to be really crappy for all of us musicians. So I think that's pretty interesting. But specifically in this interview, we're going to talk about his email list and his thoughts on why it's so important for him, and why using live shows to build an email list trumps online email list sources. So if you have just people that show up at your website and haven't been through a live show, they're not as likely to sign up to your email list as at live shows. So we're going to delve into why exactly that is, and what his exact strategy is step by step to get fans at his live shows to put their email down either on a clipboard or on their phone and get onto his email list. And also we'll touch on some of his biggest successes and his biggest failures when it comes to selling music. Let's jump right in. All right, guys, we got another episode of Seeds of Music here, and I have the wonderful Mr. Mike Vile on the show today. Mike, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. It's good to be here.
So you're actually I'm surprised at the quality that you got from that iPhone, to be honest with you, because I think I tried to do I did an iPad before, and it wasn't too bad, but I have yet to do iPhone. And when I do FaceTime with people on my iPhone, it sucks. But I think it might be the particular carrier that I use. So I'm just glad that that's working right now.
Me too. This homelessness situation is not fun, as well. My wife and I close on this house.
Oh yeah.
It's been kind of a disaster.
Is it the house in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, it is going to be in Ann Arbor.
Oh, okay. Are you thinking about like expanding the family, so you're just getting that bigger house, or? Okay, there you go.
I hope. And Ann Arbor is getting to be like Brooklyn prices on rent, and just having a basement's going to be nice to have a studio to practice.
Really? Is Ann Arbor that swanky?
I wouldn't say swanky, but we have the U of M college and then the hospital. So, yeah.
How's the music scene there?
It's growing, and it's really good, and it's very localized. We have some really great promoters. We have a great commercial radio station that also has a local program, so it's a rare opportunity to be able to get on AAA radio and get some spins. And then Matthew Altruda does his own show on that radio station, and he does a lot of shows in the area. So that really has helped. And then we have a long-standing nonprofit folk venue called the Ark, which really draws in a lot of shows. Mm-hmm. We are hurting for that 400 capacity, 300, 200 capacity venue because rent's so high for the businesses. Mm-hmm. We have like the Blind Pig. We have some local bars like breweries that do live music, but we're kind of hurting for that. Mm-hmm. Those type of things that happen in Chicago, like the Elbow Room or the Canopy Club small room in Champaign, Urbana, Illinois. that stuff. So,
But what I think is interesting is like you yet all despite like not having like larger venue, despite having like the situation that you have uh, in Ann Arbor with the rent and not having the larger venues, like you still are a full time musician and you're
yeah,
closing on a house and thinking about expanding your
right.
family. That kind of flies in the face of a lot of the negative banter that I often read out on certain websites about like there is no middle class musician. I mean, what do you think?
You and I come from the same place on that. And I appreciate your optimism whenever you're interviewing people like Brandon Mann, because I think it's easy to kind of get bogged down by these beliefs. Um, but if you talk to enough musicians, there's a way to make a living at it. It just might not be the prestigious, famous way.
Oh yeah, it's not like your rock star dream.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I also think even the rock stars, and some of my heroes, their careers go up and they go down, and they
yeah,
go up and they down, and the up and down doesn't necessarily mean you're not making the living, but it's just like these crazy moments can happen. Like I got to open up for Ben Folds
oh
and some other
nice.
big artists at a pretty awesome festival. It was a great show, and then I go back to my regular residency gigs,
Hmm.
and I think it's hard to for somebody who's not involved in music as a living or a freelance writer or one of those things, it might be hard to understand how that arc can happen.
I think that's like with any well, any career that depends on like your like a fundamental business model
Right.
where you're making money from products that you're putting out and you have marketing campaigns that you run. I mean, I just like see that to me is like yeah, that's normal, like in to have ups and down in music or any other profession. However, music just happens to be very very hard to make it work, not only because it is difficult in the first place, but because I feel like without revealing it, I feel like there's some places or on the internet where like musicians or people who work in the music industry coalesce just to um, just to like complain or talk about how things are screwed up, and that's all they do. They're just like how oh, this isn't
Yeah.
working, this isn't working, this isn't working. And it's definitely useful to pay attention to that, but also I feel like negativity makes it easy for people, attracts people, just look, turn on the news. The news is
I
like
know.
majority of it is negative BS all the time, and none of that really. I just don't. For me personally, I could be wrong. I just don't see how that really starts moving people forward and whatnot. So do you think it's important to read those type of sites like at all? I mean, should you have? I
Hmm.
mean, just keep it like in small doses, or should you just read everything no matter what just to get that negative
That's a
point of view?
personal question, and I think that's a question that really is asking where are you in your life right now? Um, and when I got to go to like a Brooks Williams songwriting touring workshop, he really stressed the importance of knowing yourself. And he was talking about knowing your body when you're on the road, but I think that also applies to our emotional place where we are,
Yeah,
or our confidence level, or just our time and where we are
yeah,
with our families. So,
yeah.
like, I'm getting into a wave where I'm going to probably start ignoring a lot of those news sites. Just not the big topics, but just the clickbait,
Oh
the
yeah,
listicles and all
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and more importantly, just ignoring the comment section. But
yeah.
I've
I
got my
get sucked
trusted
into
sources.
that.
Yeah, and it's not helpful for me. So, but I have my trusted sources that I love to check on regularly, like Aries Take. Like he just wrote a great one about house concerts, and if I wasn't staying in touch, I would miss this new resource that he interviewed Graham Colton about. And that was just like a great thing that happened for me today to check that out.
Yeah,
And I got to stay in touch with that, and I
yeah,
got to stay on his email list so it
yeah,
stays and come into my email, and I know
yeah.
it's there in case I take
Which
a break.
is a great segue because that's something. The main thing I want to cover with you
Yeah.
is this email list. I mean, it just keeps coming up time and time again. But real quick, I wanted to ask you, what is your You're a full time musician. What is your salary roughly right now?
I'm on track to make between 40 and 50,000 this year.
Oh wow, that's like.
So it was better than Aries article that he did when I was on the lower end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I quit my teaching job about 3 years ago, like my first goal was just, I'm going to make all my money from music. That's it. No teaching at all.
Okay.
And I went from public school English teacher grading papers for hours. I would play music part-time, and then I just have to abandon for months to stay sane.
Yeah.
So when I quit, I just wanted to make what a first-year teacher salary would be. You know, like
Yeah.
I had already been schooled on how to make a living at very little amount of money,
Yeah.
but at least, you know, being above the, hopefully into just that barely middle class.
Yeah. Well,
You
my
know?
mom's a teacher. My mom's a teacher. She
Wow.
teaches public school. She teaches reading, actually in Florida. And I think there's, I mean, I don't think anyone should look down on making that kind of salary completely from music, because that's
Not at all.
first of all, it's not easy. And you
No,
have to,
I mean, if you talk to any musician, and I think they should feel proud that, you know, you break into that realm of what a teacher can make.
yeah, there's
Um,
nothing, there's just nothing wrong. I mean, we're caught up so much in, like, you're successful when you make, you know, a shit ton of money, and it's maybe that is your goal. Maybe that's what you have to work towards, and yeah, like hustle for that and work hard and learn what you have to learn and don't complain. But but it just seems like from your situation, like you're like you have like a job like teaching. And I know teaching takes up a ton of time, because it's not just like the hours you have to work. You have to stay afterwards, and then you have to do events like I mean, at least my mom does ball games and stuff
Yes.
like that. So she's like constantly doing extra work that she's not paid for.
right.
And that's a whole nother can of worms, man. That kind of irks me. But so she works a lot, and she's very tired afterwards. But yet, like, you have that, and now, like, you built up a full-time career in music with comparable income to that. I think that's freaking incredible. So
Yeah, I mean that ability, and my wife's a full-time writer. She quit her job as well,
Mhm.
freelance writer,
Mhm.
and published her first book.
Mhm.
So like this year, getting that mortgage was kind of the moment that the family stops asking, "Are you going to go back and teach?" Because we've convinced somebody
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's
They're getting all nervous. Oh no.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, and understandably so. Everybody's got to live within their means, though, and you know that number I kept doing was, okay, if I have 150 students and I give an essay, that became, okay, 5 to 10 minutes of grading per essay. That's 22 hours after school. So a musician, an artist, an entrepreneur, when you have that day job, I don't believe in being a starving artist, but there are
Yeah.
certain choices we have to make to protect your time, because, you know, it's like Brandon Mann said, you have to wear two identities, but you also have to find a way to stay in your craft, because there's a breaking point. And I
Yeah.
had met that breaking point
Yeah.
after 8 years of teaching public school. And
Yeah.
so this year I'm lucky that my teaching schedule for guitar, which I just added to
Mhm.
my way I make money, like it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
It does not interfere with touring or traveling
Yeah.
for Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the Midwest. And if I do a longer tour, I call in my subs. And it's like a perfect situation that I'm really lucky to have.
Well-
And I'm still making I'm still proud of how much money I'm making beyond just teaching guitar.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because
so
you're not going to make all your money from one income source, like musical.
and it was
income
burning
source.
me out.
Yeah.
I did 208 gigs last year.
Yeah.
I put 40,000 miles on my car, and I didn't want to do that this year.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know. I think
I'll
that kind
do
of hustle, though, like
120,
hardens you.
150 dates.
Makes, you know?
Yeah, but I think I can do it more intelligently.
Yeah.
You know, so I wanted to giving limits can be really powerful. Like having all the freedom in the world can be really bad
Mhm.
with managing time. So now that I've got this box of 3 days a week I teach, 4 days a week of playing, you know, and take a day off when I want to.
Yeah.
And then take a break from teaching, you know, like a week off to go on tour
Mhm.
in a smaller realm. It feels a lot better. It feels
Yeah.
more healthy for me.
Yeah.
But
So, Mike, I want to jump into the email list right now.
Yeah.
Why is the email list important for you?
Seth Godin talked about this company that he thought it was weird, like you would see a toothpaste company or a dental product, and they'd have their email list or their way to connect to them. And he's like, who would care about that?
Hmm.
But I think there's always this niche of people who really care, and you want to stay connected to them.
Hmm.
So for me, like my email list is my way to connect to the people who are super connected to what I do.
Yeah.
And it's a direct relationship with them that cannot be not emphasized enough. And it's more powerful than Facebook and Twitter at times because it's
Hmm.
going right to their email list,
Yeah.
right to their email box.
Yeah.
So I do find it to be essential.
Yeah. So what's better for building an email list of fans? Like doing it online, like driving traffic to a sign up form on your band's website, or doing it offline at your live shows?
I think it's better to do it offline, but I think you have to do both. And I think it's important just keep staying optimistic and not getting discouraged. When you build that email list through online, you're going to see your engagement numbers go down, and it can get really disappointing. If you see when you start out and it's all friends and family and that small level of community fans, you could have a 50%, 60% open rate. And then if you build it through online and you double your numbers, then you notice, oh man, I got a 28% open rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the MailChimp says that the industry average for music is like 12%,
Yeah.
which can be really disappointing. But
Probably
I think
because
it's more.
musicians don't know how to run effective email
That's a
campaigns.
good question. It's really hard to know why that number is what it is.
Hmm.
But I definitely saw that decline. I mean, I was at 48% when I started out with with like 500 people on my list, and now that I've expanded to 1,000, 2,000, I see that open rate go down.
Yeah.
And I think it's because that I was focused more on internet-based traffic.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to fix that by just making connections with people at shows and reminding myself that that email list is important at the show, not just that sale or
So
trying to convince them to come to another show by saying
gotcha.
hi, giving them a card.
Gotcha. So if they sign up to your email list at a live show, they're more likely to actually open your emails. What else are
I
they
think
more
so.
likely to do?
Well, we see that change where people are not buying CDs as much, depending on the age, and I think downloads in iTunes is going to decrease. But I'm seeing more of those people engage with me on Facebook, on Twitter, uh, connecting to me as a person, not just connecting as a fan, and I like that. I think that that's really valuable as a DIY artist. They're more likely to offer a house concert if you're coming to their area.
Hmm.
They're more likely to come to another show. They're more likely to stream it on Spotify and then share that they liked your music or watching that video on YouTube.
So overall, it just sounds like they're more likely to support you if they get on your email list from a live show than they are if they just come
Right.
from somewhere online and find your website.
And I'm the same way as a fan of music. Like I sign up to a lot of email lists.
Yeah.
And the ones that I stay on are the ones that I'm super emotionally connected to, the music, the artist, what they do. And I am more likely to do those things that I'm looking for people to do as well.
So do you feel like that emotional connection is what is going to actually overcome something like music piracy?
Yeah, I do, because I think music piracy is going to be overcome by accessibility. And that's one thing I do agree about with Bob Letzfetz is that the pirating music is difficult for the normal person, and the geeks don't want to believe that because it's easy for them.
Yeah.
But once iTunes was easy to use, people used it. My dad used it.
Yeah.
Spotify is, the streaming software. We don't know which one's going to become the main one, but one's going to win because it's there. It's a database. It's easy to use. You can stream it from your phone.
Yeah.
I've switched over. I use Spotify, so it's hard for me not to recognize other people are going to do that.
But would you
And
ever?
Spotify just became possible in Canada.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering how that's going to help me since I do all my recording on Canada, my labels in Canada, but they've had no Spotify interaction. They haven't been able to use it.
Yeah.
As of today, they can.
So it's like that
That might-
ease of use and is really important, but it's hard for me to imagine. I mean, I personally wouldn't do it, but it's also hard for me to imagine that anyone would steal music from an artist that they have a deep emotional connection to. It's kind of like, stealing from a friend or a family member, though some people do that. But the majority of us, I think, are noble in that aspect.
Yeah, but there's no way to consume the amount of music that we consume at the the expense level that it would have cost, like when I was in high school in the 90s and would walk to Repeat the Beat music store and only had X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
And I thought I had a lot of CDs when I had 300 CDs in high school. And then my dad and we had 1,000 CDs. But I've got tens of thousands of music that I can engage with, you know, and there's no way anybody could afford all that. So I think it's hard for people to connect that when you don't buy it and you're not supporting the music that way, that musician might never be able to make more music.
Yeah, there might not be more music. And this was something interesting that there was a previous interview that I did with Kim Bookbinder, and she said that you're kind of paying for current music to support like future music, you know, paying for art now to support art creation later. And I think that's very, very true. It's funny, like you shift a perspective on something and suddenly like you have a positive move, you know, forward, because all it takes is just a different way of looking at it. But I really want to ask you now, what's your strategy for getting fans onto your email list from your live shows?
That's a great question. I like Ari Herstand's talk about having your pitch for your merch. That's so important. And it can't just be this like trying to be a salesman thing.
Yeah.
And it's got to be true to yourself and who you are. And I think connecting the email list to that is really important, because you're driving people to your table or whether you're hanging out. And it might be simply talking about a story of like, oh man, this person was on my email list from Brazil and he is now owning his own radio company, and now he's playing my music because he signed up on my email list. And just having a personal story, that was just a random anecdote.
Can you walk us step through step though? Or step through step? What the hell?
Step by step.
What am I? Step by step. I don't know why I said step. That does sound weird. Step through step. Okay, sorry. Step by step.
We'll walk through the steps.
Yeah, walk through the steps of what you did when you had you were really successful at one particular, your most successful email list building show. What did you do from start to finish?
At that time, I was offering like free song downloads.
Okay.
And there was a specific reason to connect to the email list. And I always emphasize, I only send out once a month, maybe once every month and a half. It's very specific. And I'm sharing a lot of free music right now through that, song demos that are going to end up on the next record. I'm going to share one of those songs with you right now, and tell the personal story connected to it. And then people come up later and they're like, oh, I love that song. Are you telling me I can get that on your email list? And I say, yes. And that really worked.
So you announce, you play your gig, and then in the beginning or the middle of the end, you announce that you have the free track?
Yeah, and I play that song. So and then people want to get that song.
Okay, so you say you have this free track, and then you tell the story about it, and then you play it?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
And if that wasn't clear, so I just mentioned that, hey, this is a way to get this song through my email list, which will be at the merch table. And then I play the song, and then, you know, you find that if you've given a reason to sign up, and there should be a story or anecdote connected to it in that sense.
Where do they go to get the free track and punch in their email address?
Well, I've used Noise Trade. That's been a really great service to share free music. Okay. I've used Dropbox directly. Okay. You know, they can do the save as option.
What is a Dropbox for everyone who doesn't know?
Well, Dropbox is an online cloud service where you can store stuff and other people can access it to download.
Okay. How do you get the email, though, in exchange for that?
Well, okay, so I'll walk you through that process. Let's say I'm using just a clipboard with paper. Okay. And they've signed up with a pen to the paper. When they get their next email from me on my email newsletter, it's going to be, say, Mike Vile Song Download Club. And in that newsletter, there's an easy way to get that download by clicking a link. So it's pretty simple.
And you use MailChimp for that?
I do use MailChimp.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just trying to synthesize this into just a step-by-step process so that maybe anyone listening to, they can go out and do it at their next show.
So I was connecting my songs because I was putting out a lot of material at the time as my way to build also my email list. Yeah. I think song downloads are, you know, we're moving more to a streaming platform, so I got to come up with something new for the next year, next tour. Okay, but this worked. This has worked for you, where you were up on stage, you have the clipboard. Was a clipboard sitting at your merch table?
And
Yeah,
then you said,
yeah,
hey, the clipboard, so you go up there, you say, I've got this next song I've got for free download. And if you all you have to do is sign up to the email list, I'll send it right to you after the show, and then tell the story about the song. It's about this song comes from my mom and da da da. And then
exactly.
you play it, and so again, guys, the email clipboard is back at the merch table. Sign up there. I'm also curious. So after you've done that, and say you're done with your short show, do you go back out there and with the clipboard in hand and walk up to people in person?
I let people come to me,
Mm-hmm.
but um, I feel like when you let people come to you, you have a better chance of getting a person who wants to be there. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm done trying to fight for somebody who I have to convince because
Yeah.
I want the music to convince them. If the music's
Yeah.
convinced them, if the story, if whatever I'm writing about on my blog has convinced them, then great. But if I have to kind of make you awkward and sign up, but you really don't want to be there,
Yeah.
they're just going to ignore it. So I don't walk up to them directly at the show. I let people come up to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you're coming up to them in person, then they're gonna put their email list down
Yeah.
or a email list, like a junk
And
email list, because they don't
and
want to
and
seem like a jerk.
and I don't take offense if somebody doesn't want to be on an email list because everybody wants to interact in their own way. So
Yeah.
some people like connecting through Facebook, others connect through Twitter,
Yeah.
others want to just directly go to your website, and I think everybody's different,
But it
and that's why.
seems like though the people who are really really interested, they'll still hand over an email address because very very few people don't have an email address, so it's not like they don't have one.
Right.
And even if they have like a preference, like they're on Twitter all the time, if they really actually care or are really interested more than your Facebook, you know, who someone has liked your page or a Twitter follower, then they'll punch in that email address because they're giving something first instead of clicking a button, which is just like nothing. It's like
Yeah.
there's nothing to that really. Um, but yeah, so just to recap it again, just get for anybody who's listening. Mike suggests that you have the email clipboard at your merch table or sitting somewhere, maybe at probably like it'd be good at the merch table and not near the front of the stage because I think it'd be kind of awkward
Yeah.
for people to walk
Absolutely.
up there. But then have like a song with an awesome story attached to it. They're like, oh wow, that's so interesting. Tell them that you have it for free if you just sign up to the email list. The clipboard's over there. Play the song. And then I would probably personally announce it again right after you're done with the entire show.
Absolutely.
And then in particular, you use MailChimp to add their email address to MailChimp. So if it's on the clipboard, you have to go and put it in manually, and then you send them like an email. Do you send out newsletters like once a month or you
Yeah.
send it out
So
right after the show so they can get that
you
download?
should. I think you should because it's that immediate contact.
Mm-hmm.
And with MailChimp, you can send out just a segment of your mailing list. So
Mm-hmm.
you can send out to just the immediate people after that show
Mm-hmm.
by and it can be a personalized email. And
Yeah.
then I have my once a month or once every month
Yeah.
and a half
Yeah.
regular newsletter that
Yeah.
goes out.
I know that MailChimp has the final welcome email. That's where I deliver instant contact because once they go through the sign up process, they get that final welcome email and you can put the link in there to the download where and that link can be to some other place where the music is hosted. But MailChimp can also host audio files that are less than 10 megabytes. So you can put an MP3 up there that's not too large and that they can actually download it straight from MailChimp's hosting servers.
That's cool.
So I wanted to ask you probably a
Can
tough.
I add a thought on this?
Yeah.
I think it'd be valuable to have an iPad and switch over from the piece of paper because people
Yeah.
enter it in incorrectly, or
Yeah.
you get a better chance of them entering it incorrectly when they're typing it themselves, and it's hard to read their handwriting.
Yeah.
I also like collecting the zip code. And I try to tell people why, because I like to localize some emails. Like if I'm playing a great show, I don't want to send it out to people who are 100 miles away. That really bothers people,
Yeah.
I think. It's like
I'm
the
curious.
Facebook
Yeah.
invite for your friend
Yeah.
in California when you live in Michigan.
Yeah. I'm
And I
curious.
also like to ask people for their birthday day and month because it gives me the opportunity to send out a personalized thing and be like, hey, I was thinking of you on your birthday. Here's a quick little thing of me saying happy birthday to a segment of people. And those little personalized touches you can do when you're a DIY artist because you have a smaller circle, but you can really make it a personal
Yeah.
thing for them.
I think you can pull. There's one critical thing I have to mention about that. In general, asking for a lot of information during email sign up turns people away. However, I
Okay.
think you can get away with that when you do it at a live show because they've met you in person and there's a certain level of
Yeah.
trust established first. But man, if they find an email form and they've never met you in person and it's like just cold internet traffic or maybe organic or maybe driven by social media, I would know. I don't recommend anything more than than just an email address that you ask for.
I agree with that.
But
The online versus the what you can get away with in person, and even what you can get away with in person should be quick.
yeah, I don't want
Shouldn't
to.
take more.
I hope no one takes it wrong by saying like get away with like he. You know, it's more. It is important to have the artist's zip code because for that same reason, if you're going to play a local show, you don't want to bother everybody with an email
Right.
that when they can't even go to your show because it's like 500 miles outside of it. I mean, you might have someone who will go the distance, but they have to really, 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 really care. But in general, you want to do that. And I think asking for the birthday information, I'd be interested to test that out and see if that affects your conversion rate. How
It's a
many
great
people
question.
actually sign up for your email newsletter as to how many people were sitting there in the live show. That comes
Yeah.
out to a percentage called conversion rate for anybody who's not familiar what that means. But this last question well, it's actually not my last question. Second to last question. I'm wondering, what's been your biggest success and what has been your biggest failure when it comes to selling music?
Specifically selling music.
Yeah.
Um, I have two biggest successes I'd like to share. I mean, the releasing a new EP and having that CD release show at a great venue is such a great feeling, and it tends to be that tipping of the iceberg of the long tail, or the mountain, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
before the long tail begins. So like when I released Burning the Boats, my second EP, and went to like a amazing producer who had done City and Color and Feist, and then got to release that and have that initial sales, like that just felt so rewarding. I'm the type of artist that
Excuse me.
I feel really happy when I can sell 1,000 CDs of something. That's my number that I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the second success is also seeing that long tail and really feeling it. It's playing 208 gigs and looking back on the year and seeing how many I still will say CDs because it's something people can take. How many of those have been sold? That long tail number is just as good as that first gig number, that CD release show number. You can see that become equal, and that feels like really good work that is successful.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest failure I've had was with the song that I felt most positive about, and spent money at that same studio, same recording team, and didn't put it in a physical format, and just tried to do an online campaign locally through my networks, and then felt really disappointed in the sales and streams.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of my most recent songs that I put out. I was really discouraged with the lack of sales, lack of interaction. But I'm also seeing that long tail happen now.
Yeah.
So
what do you think the biggest difference was between that success and failure?
it's my lesson that I do better when people are there to see you and shake your hand and connect with it in person versus trying to do it online.
Mm-hmm.
As a DIY artist, I think it's easy to get caught up in the internet and trying to make a big splash, and sometimes
Get the
it's
most
just
Twitter
better to do it local.
followers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a trap, man. That's a trap. You gotta. It's quality. It's quality of the connections you make, not just large. It's easy to impress with large numbers. Easy to impress.
And it's maybe it's harder to get people excited about one song than it is a bigger collection of work right now. We hear a lot of rules of thumb, and there isn't any data to support the rules of thumb from a lot of these talking heads and these pundits, but they might say, records are dead. you got to just release singles. And that might be true in some form for a pop hip hop artist, but that's not true for me as a folk artist,
Yeah.
acoustic singer-songwriter artist.
Because you have to think about
at
your
this time.
fans and how they like to consume your music, So
Yeah.
if you're, I mean, if your fans are mostly, I'm going to take an extreme example, but if your fans are mostly 70, 80-year-olds who don't,
Yeah.
don't use like any social media, well, you're not going to be doing any social media campaigning. So it's going to have, I mean, above everything, learn what you can about as much as possible, but seek to understand like who your fans are, like who they really are. And that's going to help out with you deciding, okay, I don't think I need an Instagram.
Or, you can use Instagram, but don't worry about it having to be what your website is. Don't spend a lot of time trying to make it.
Maybe do like 5 minutes, like 10 minutes every 2 days working on it.
For every 20 pictures I post on Instagram, maybe 1 out of every 20 is going to be something about music, but most of it's me playing guitar, seeing a cool guitar, my dog doing something stupid.
Yeah, which is, it's a good, that's a good tactic with any kind of social media.
But don't you agree that we're kind of stuck in time right now where we don't know what the next thing is? We don't know. We knew in the 90s that it was about CD sales. We knew for a period of time that iTunes was where it was at, but it's in chaos right now. And it's really hard to know what is going to work and not going to work, especially as a DIY artist.
Yeah, and I think honestly, it comes down to technology and the fact that it's increasingly too rapidly for us to keep up with it and innovate on this kind of end. What we're talking about, like being able to find working business models within the music industry. And the tech industry is doing it, but I hate to say it, man, but they got way more innovators in the tech industry than they do in the music industry, as far as not the music, but I'm talking about the music business side of that. I mean, great artists constantly, they observe. They're great observers. In my opinion, great artists are great observers, and they create something new from their observations or something that's a little bit of the same, but with a different point of view. But when it comes to actually music careers, there's not a lot of innovation going on there. But it's honestly, to me, it's just the fact that technology is just like going at light speed, and it's just hard. It's hard to keep up with that. It's really hard.
Can I offer a devil's advocate to that? I don't disagree that technology, that the startups in technology are more innovative right now, but it was the musicians who made MySpace cool. It's the musicians that jump onto these things and make the community cool and see some success, and then everybody else joins on, and then it kind of gets watered down. Without those musicians, those communities wouldn't have built the way that they have. So there's some innovation from your musicians jumping on, and then we have people like Jack Conte who make Patreon, which is super innovative.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a lot of change and there is a lot of innovation. It's not at the major label level.
Oh, no.
They're the slowest to react, and they're the ones with the most money, and they're the ones with the most
they're concerned with
ability.
Yeah.
They're the ones with the most ability to create change within the actual market. Billy Corgan keeps talking about, and he's called a lot of these predictions 5 years ago, but he's talked about we need major successful artists because it creates a global, well, maybe not global, but a community conversation as a nation around a certain art form. And we've lost a lot of that. I mean, the biggest artist right now, like Imagine Dragons, like half of the teachers at my music studio don't even know who that band is, which blows my mind. Mm-hmm. That never would have happened in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Even my parents knew who Nirvana was. Mm-hmm. They might not have been able to call out the song. So if we get stuck in niches, I do worry that music is going to just kind of not push the culture the way that it used to, and tech will continue to push the culture.
Well, that's because culture is dictated by mass media. I mean, that's like we have more influence, but you, as an individual, to influence, you need power and reach, and you need people who follow you. That's why Amanda Palmer is so influential, is because she has an audience, she has followers, she has people who want to hear from her, and want to listen to her. That's why Bob Lefsetz has influence, because he has a ton of people following and listening to him. He has his tribe. I mean, the same thing goes for David Lowery and all these other individuals who are pretty notable in the music industry for being, I guess, thought leaders is what I would call them. But what dictates culture is mass media, because they have the overarching reach and the access to the most eyes and the most ears, you know? So if it goes on, and going into discussion about mass media is like a whole another ball game, but the major labels, they definitely have a hold on, you know, what goes into the mass awareness. I mean, they still hold the power because they have the system. They have, it's not just money, but they have the network and the systems like that already set into place. But problem with them is that they're to just prove time and time again that their interests are not aligned with the artist's interests. So it's just going to be important for. I mean, that should just be obvious to anybody. So it'll be just interesting to see. I mean, things are changing, you know, because you have labels, and then the artists are all trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work for their own interests and their own self gain. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the best way I could put it at this point in time.
And it's well put. I mean, Amanda Palmer is a hero of mine. You know, she was on the major label, and she's able to really leverage that really well. And that's a lot different for somebody like me, who's completely DIY, quits a teaching job.
Yeah, you didn't have that
has
jump
a little
start
bit of a
with
local
the fan base.
community following.
Yeah.
Has only so much money to put in advertising campaigns.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how much does it cost to get on radio?
Mm-hmm.
There's it's a different vantage point of looking at how to get into music business.
Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like she just, I mean, because of first getting like her major label deal. I mean, that's like a feat from the beginning. That's not likely to happen for most people. But I kind of feel like, since you probably know Seth Godin, I can mention this, the dip. You know, so every artist has the dip, which is this huge, long, like, rut in the very beginning where you feel like you're getting nowhere. And once you break out of that, then you start experiencing growth in your career, where that means more fans or you're making more money and you get to quit your day job and everything. But there's Amanda Palmer kind of, I mean, that major label and that exposure that she got from that and the fan base that was built with her time there, it has helped her overcome, like, I don't think she had a dip. I don't know if, I can't say this for sure, but it's definitely helped her overcome, if not circumvent, that initial dip in her career. Because you just had that I don't blame her for leveraging that. But what she's done, the growth that she's seen since she's left the label, that's like her. That's all her. Yeah. It's not like she can't, I don't see how anyone can turn around and say the success that she experienced now is completely on her or completely owed to the fact that she started with a label. It's a mix of the both. So you got the label got her here, but then she, with her like tactics with connecting, being really hardcore and really like transparent with her fans,
right,
and really active on just whatever social media, phone calls, like connecting with people in person. That's what's like taken her to where she is now. So give credit to both of them. But there's a lot of people that
I just think it's important as a DIY artist to not get discouraged. And I know where these little discouragements happen, because you see someone reach great success and you try to follow in the footsteps, and it can be hard to recognize why it worked for them. And also, Amanda's an early adopter to something. You do a Kickstarter campaign now, it's not exciting anymore. It's still important to do. I think it's still positive. It's still successful, but
it still works.
Yeah, it still works, but it's not going to work at that level. And you're not going to have Forbes doing an article about your campaign just because you're a musician.
Well, I think they did the article about on Forbes because of the level of her success.
Right.
But the level is because
she's one of the first artists to really reach that $1 million number.
Mm-hmm. But she knew how to go about it. I mean, her strategy for it, definitely a combination of being an early adopter, but I think that being an early adopter wasn't enough to push it to that level. Was the fact that she definitely had a team working with her. Okay, that was helping her out, but her strategy was solid too. You know, she had lots of like varying rewards that tied in with actual live shows. I mean, I've run my own successful Kickstarter campaign just by myself, and went way past my goal that I needed to do. And I wasn't even able to do everything that I could have done to promote that Kickstarter within the time frame, just with my own manpower, while also running a Seeds of Music show at the same time. And a lot of I researched a lot of successful Kickstarters and looked at what they did in order to run a successful campaign, and I just applied that to my situation as a template, and she was like the first person I looked at. So I think that, I think that you can't let artists can't do-it-yourself musicians or independent artists, people don't have labels, can't look at something like Kickstarter and say, well, if I don't make that $1 million, I'm a failure, or I could make that $1 million. You have to understand, have a basic understanding about the truth about why she's successful, why certain people are successful, and whether you can realistically get the same results following what they did. I think that you will get better results, but I'm not going to sit and say that do what Amanda Palmer did and you're going to make $1 million. Do what she did, and your Kickstarter is you vastly increase your chances of your Kickstarter getting funded, you know, because it all comes down to the strength, that not just what you do with the Kickstarter campaign, but the strength of the relationships you have already built up into that point with your fans, you know. So someone doing a Kickstarter for the very first album and they're still working on like their fan relationships, that stuff's probably not gonna run. But
right,
I don't know. That was I just felt like since I've done Kickstarter, I felt like I had a lot to say there. But I just want to be like conscious of your time now. I don't.
Thanks, Kyle.
I know this has been running for a while, and you're trapped up in the hotel room, probably anxious to get out, having some cabin fever. But
it's probably more my dog.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised the dog has been quiet this whole time. There's like 2 cats here. I have to lock out because when they get around me, like I have the urge to reach down and pet them, but so I just I kick them out. But Mike, this is a really, really awesome, insightful interview. I'm glad that we just not only had a chance to hit up email lists, but do a little just impromptu conversation at the end about some other really important topics. I definitely want to keep in mind, maybe do some interviews just on that in the future. So, Mike, thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been good to reconsider these important topics.
All right, man.
And good luck to everybody.
Okay. Check you later.
Bye.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Seeds of Music. On the show today, we had Mike Vile, 100% musical income, independent artist, talking about the importance of the email list and how building your email list through your live shows is the best way to go to build a bigger fan base and start making a living off of music. So make sure to check out the links I've posted up below for him and show your support for him by following through and checking out his music, signing up for his email newsletter as well if you want to stay up to date with him. Next, if you haven't yet, we here at Seeds of Music have our own email newsletter. You get updates on new interviews, vlog episodes, and articles if you sign up, plus special newsletter content that I only send out to people on the newsletter that will help you build a bigger fan base and sell more music online. And once again, we do have the iTunes podcast. Head over there, subscribe, and please, if you want to help out the show, leave a rating and review. Now, for social media, if you got Facebook or Twitter, please like, share, and tweet this interview out. Share it with your family, your friends, and your other musician friends so we can spread these ideas and help more musicians. And lastly, comment on the video. I've got a comment box linked up below on the Seeds of Music post page. If you're on YouTube, there's a comment box below there. Just leave a comment on this video. Love to hear what your thoughts are on these interviews. Do you know somebody who should be on this show, or is that person you? I have an open door email policy, kyle.seedsofmusic@gmail.com. Send me an email. At the most, it'll take me 2 days to get back to you, but I go through every single email that comes my way and make sure that I at least respond to it. Until next time, remember, we are the future of music.